What is going on? Welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown, episode 46 of the show. Welcome inside, and we appreciate you guys for making us part of your podcast rotation. I am the host of the show, Johnny Sub, and of course, alongside me, as always, my friend Robert Munich. How are we doing today, Robert?
Hockey's back, baby. Hockey's back.
Day.
I love it. I love every second of it. I am you know what? Like, I'm cautiously optimistic about this Flames team this year. I think there's a lot of interesting storylines to follow. I don't know how good they're going to be, but I still think it's actually going to be a pretty interesting year. So I'm excited to break it all down. And yeah, dude, Wednesday night, Battle of Alberta. No better way to get the season going.
It is the annual tradition of every podcast, sports show, radio show that does do the hockey thing, where it is predictions week. Breaking down the rosters. We are no different. As we record here on Monday, the rosters have been finalized for the Flames. So let's start there, Robert. Let's break down who makes the Flames. And maybe one surprise that's on that roster for me, the guy they called up to complete that 23-man, I almost said 53-man roster. Holy NFL. A 23-man roster for the Flames. What do we got, Robert? Who made the Flames team here?
We'll just go through how like the lines are set up right now,
Yeah,
Lisa. As they were at practice. So their first line is Joel Farabee, Nazem Kadri, Adam Klapka. When that's a first line in the NHL, you might have some issues. But
yeah.
And then it goes Matt Gridden, who makes the team out of camp, which is awesome.
Fantastic.
Morgan Frost, Matt Coronado, Connor Zary, Michael Backlund, Blake Coleman, and then Ryan Lomberg, Justin Kirkland, and Yegor Sharangovich. And then the surprise announcement today was that Sam Honzek was recalled because the Calgary Flames put Martin Pospisil and Jonathan Huberdeau on IR after suffering injuries last Wednesday night. So Sam Honzek is also on the opening night roster along with Matt Gridden, which is exciting. It's good to see a couple young guys up there. I don't know if Honzek's going to play or not. Maybe he plays in Vancouver on the second of a back-to-back, but just for him to make the team out of camp 2 years in a row, even though there's injuries right now, it's still an impressive accomplishment for the kid. And then on the back end, we got Joel Hanley, Mackenzie Weegar, Kevin Ball, Rasmus Anderson, Jake Bean, Braden Pahal, the third pairing from last year, and then Zane Parekh, Daniil Miramanov as an extra pair at practice today, and Dustin Wolf and Devin Cooley are your goaltenders. So some interesting stuff going on there. I'll throw it to you first. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Do you think Honzek's going to get in the lineup, and do you like where Matt Gridden's playing right now? He's playing alongside Morgan Frost and Matt Coronado. Maybe just a couple comments on the young guys.
Yeah, for sure. Also, as well, we should probably note Jonathan Huberdeau and Martin Pospisil are on the roster, but they start on the IR, hence the Honzek recall, which I like. I like that they recalled the guy that they've invested a lot of time in and they have high hopes for. I think maybe waivers played a part in that with Rory Cairns. There's a lot of people online trying to be like, why wasn't it Rory Cairns? I think waivers plays a part in that. And it's a little bit of faith in Honzek as well from the Flames. I'm not sure he plays. Maybe, like you said, in the Vancouver game. Be interested if he gets in that lineup and how long he's up for, because the injury to Pospisil doesn't sound like it's a long-term thing. It's like a day-to-day thing. So maybe he's just down tomorrow and Pospisil's in the lineup come that game in Vancouver. And I think it also shows with Gridden making this lineup that we all were all told that there are jobs to be had. And when you are, I like to use the word undeniable, when you play and you're undeniable, like Matt Gridden was this preseason, there is a job available. I don't think the Huberdeau injury had anything to do with Gridden making this roster. I think him being on IR gives an easy spot for Gridden in the lineup, and easy place for him to play in this lineup. But I think making this team, Gridden did enough to make this roster, and the Flames went out there and they made it possible for the young kids. So it's nice to see a couple of first rounders for the Flames make the team out of camp and get reward. And I like him beside Frost. You saw him a couple preseason games with Morgan Frost. I think that's a nice place for him to start, a nice place for him to play, and he'll get a lot of opportunities there. I quite like it. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably push back a little bit. Like, I think if Huberdeau and Pospisil were both healthy, I think Gridden would definitely be in the American Hockey League, even though you're right, he deserved to make the team, even if there were those injuries. But I do think that definitely helped him. And yeah, you know what? Like, one guy like I'm looking at here is Morgan Frost. And I'm wondering, should we buy into the hype? I mean, he led the team in points throughout the preseason. Like, he looked dynamic. Like, he was making some unbelievable passes throughout the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
What can we expect from this guy? Like, I actually think he's probably the most intriguing player to watch this season, because I see like 50, maybe even like 60 point potential with this guy. Like I think he's that skilled and he's that talented. But what we've heard from Philadelphia Flyer fans is that they thought the exact same thing too, but he was just wildly inconsistent. He could never, bring in his talent and his pace on a night in, night out basis. And I'm wondering what he's going to look like this year, because I think he could, like I said, he could be that 50, 60 point guy. And if he becomes that player, all of a sudden the Flames have like a pseudo second line center there. I'm really interested to see what he's going to do. I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts on him are as we head into the regular season.
Well, we know Flyer fans are always level-headed, right? I think Morgan Frost has done everything you wanted him to do in this preseason. He comes in here into camp motivated. It very much feels like he's motivated. He's shown what he has worked on this offseason at camp, and he's really taken on the role of he played a lot of games as the number one center on that roster in those particular games, and he did a lot of good things with it offensively. His defensive game, a lot of people don't like it. I think it's come a little bit of a long ways here since you first saw him in the National Hockey League, and that's a positive sign. And he's been able to form some chemistry with a guy that you want to see offensive explosion from in Matt Coronado. So I think he's poised to be exactly what you're saying there, Robert, a 50 to 60 point guy. If he had 20, 25 goals and 35-ish assists, that would be a great season from this guy, and showing why the Flames went out and acquired this guy. He has all the opportunity in the world in front of him right now to be the second line center on this team. And he's done everything thus far in training camp and preseason to be that. Let's see it for real now. See what happens when the games start mattering and the points start counting up starting Wednesday night.
The other thing that stands out when you take a look at this opening night lineup is the fact that it's looking like Zane Parekh will not play in Edmonton on Wednesday, and they've kept Daniil Miramanov with the big club. I know I've seen a lot of people online. They're not too happy about this, and I don't blame them. I think Zane Parekh is good enough to start the season. I understand where the Flames are coming from the standpoint that they want to be careful with him and they want to make sure they kind of protect his confidence and all that kind of stuff. But, to be totally honest, I think Zane Parekh is definitely good enough to be in that opening night lineup. I actually think the big concern with him is who he's going to play with, because it's either Jake Bean, who struggled mightily in the preseason. Like, he was terrible in the preseason. Or you're going to throw Braden Pahal on the left side. You're going to throw, a pretty straightforward north-south kind of defenseman on his offside. That's asking a lot from a guy like Pahal. Or you got to completely, mix up the top four, and you got to put him with like a Kevin Ball, or you got to put a Joel Hanley down there. Like, I actually think like Zane Parekh is not the issue. It's actually who he's playing with is a big time issue. And I actually think it's one of the reasons why he's not going to be in the lineup on opening night. And there's also just that whole, like, they want to protect him. Like, going into Rogers Place against McDavid and Draisaitl on opening night when you don't get last change, there's obviously some risks there. And I get it. But at the same time, I do wish Zane Parekh was in the lineup. And ultimately, I do think they're going to need to find him a new partner. And I don't know if they're going to do like a temporary one via trade, or maybe they're going to pick somebody off waivers, or, it's going to have to come when Rasmus Anderson's traded, and then they can move him with Kevin Ball. The whole situation is pretty fascinating, but to be honest, just with the way the last two preseason games went, I could totally see the Flames scratching him on opening night, because he did struggle in those last two games.
He did, but then where does the scratching stop? Because then you just say they have the same conversation in Vancouver. I know McDavid and Leon are a different animal, but you go into Vancouver and Elias Pettersson can make your life a living hell. For me, and this is where I stand, this is the one thing of Ryan Huska that I disagree with, is how almost stubborn he is with his defensive pairs sometimes. I rearrange them. You have a kid coming in here. Yes, we all give him these high expectations because of a few games we've seen from this guy, but I rearrange my D pairs to put this guy into the lineup because I bet on skill. So I would put him with Weegar, or I would put Weegar with Anderson and put Ball with Parekh, and I would rearrange it. You're asking Hanley to repeat last year's performance, which is a tall task because he played above the back of his hockey card. You're asking a lot from Pahal to be a partner to Parekh. He can do it, I'm sure, but one of them has to be on the offside. I think you go the route of, Weegar can play the left side. Yes, he's less effective, but he can still do it. And rearrange your defense pair. Put your talent in the lineup and let them figure it out. There are other ways you can protect Parekh in those games. You could You can change on the fly. You could put out the right forward line. You could always have Michael Backlund be the forward line with Barek behind him. You can do things to help protect this guy, and he's going to have to learn it sooner or later. I tried to protect this guy and not give him to the Fishes or the Sharks right off the hop. At the same time, bet on your skill, bet on your players. He made this roster for a reason. He's good enough to play here. Let him play. So where I stand is I rearrange my D pairs. You have guys who can play with other guys, use them, and if you have a third pairing of Hanley and Pahal, I think you're okay with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, and another way you could go about it too would be, maybe you move Joel Hanley down to the third pair with Zane Parekh, and you have that veteran presence with him.
Don't mind that either.
And then and you don't move Jake Bean up. You keep Jake Bean on the lineup where he should be. He should be a healthy scratch. Maybe you bring up a guy like Jan Kuznetsov to play with Mackenzie Weegar in like a second pair role, because I actually think Kuznetsov's game would actually kind of complement Weegar's game nicely, because he's more of a kind of a defense first type of guy. He's big, he's rangy, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden you give Ball and Anderson the toughest matchups, and then you go second pair of Kuznetsov Weegar. You keep Weegar on that right side where he's better, and then you got Joel Hanley, a respected veteran and a good veteran player, alongside your rookie Zane Parekh. All of a sudden, I actually think that's kind of a half decent decor. It gets Bean out of the lineup. It keeps Miramanov out of the lineup. And why did he make the team? What's going on with Miramanov? Like, does he got like naked photos of Ryan Huska or something like that? He's got like some blackmail or dirt on him. Like, how the hell did this guy make the team?
I really, really think the Flames are trying to make something happen here to not admit a mistake. And I think that's the wrong way going about it. They made a mistake in that trade. They took an opportunity and a chance on a 26-year-old defenseman at the time, and it didn't pay off. And they're trying just to not make it look like they made a mistake. Like, oh no, this is their plan for this guy. This is our depth guy. I'm sorry, man. This is barely a depth guy at the AHL level. I do not understand why he's on the roster. I do not understand what he has on the Flames or why they continually try to chug this train out there, but it's more frustrating than anything I've ever seen. It's more frustrating than the Trey Brower contract. It's more frustrating than the Brandon Bollig trade years ago. It's more frustrating than anything else I've seen on this Flames team for a long, long time. We've had my Miramanov rant before, so I won't go too far here, but I don't know why he's on this roster. And to a man, you mentioned Kuznetsov. Why did Jake Bean make this roster either? Are they just going with veterans because they know what they can get out of a veteran? Because for me, neither of those guys were roster worthy in training camp or preseason. And guys like Kuznetsov need an opportunity. You already lost Solovyov. Why not give these guys opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, there's no rational explanation for it from like an on ice hockey perspective. The only reasoning that might make sense is that it's a business decision. And I know like Steinberg's been saying this a lot recently on 960. He's basically pointing out that NHL teams don't like having expensive one-way contracts down at the American Hockey League level. And
don't sign them.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, but like also like when it comes to the Flames, like they have a ton of cap space, and like could you not almost like consider like the AHL budget and the NHL budget, like could you not like kind of almost combine them together? Like, you're going to be paying Jake Bean, 1 point whatever he's making, regardless if he's in the AHL or NHL. Like, could you not, like is that really that big a deal to put that money down there? You're going to be paying him that much regardless. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd like to hear what Ryan Huska has to say about keeping Bean and Miramanov around. My guess is that Conroy talked to Don Maloney, and Maloney said, you got to keep those guys in the NHL roster because we don't want to pay them, $1.2 to $1.5 million in the American Hockey League. I guarantee you that's the answer. The Flames would probably never say that because you'd be throwing those two guys under the bus, but I bet you that's the reason. But it still doesn't make sense. Yeah, it really doesn't. It's actually making your team worse.
It doesn't. It makes sense if you just come at it from the money aspect of things and how you run a business, and I get that side of it. But at the same time, why did you give Jake Bean the second year? Why did you give Daniil Miramanov an extension without seeing him play a game on
and they give him a 2-year extension, not just a 1 year. Like
exactly.
So
it's
bizarre.
At the same time, I get why they don't want the 1-year contracts on the farm team, but you put yourself in this position, knowing full well you had a Kuznetsov, a Solovyov, Etienne Morin's coming, Ristevich is coming, Henry Muse has been drafted, Perek at the time was coming. You knew this was coming up, and you traded for Ball at the same time. So you knew this was happening. So this is the team trying to make the playoffs, and I get that. But just having a veteran on the roster because he's a veteran and on a one-way, it's not the way to to make you win. Is having Kuznetsov on the roster versus Jake Bean on the roster the difference between a win or a loss? I highly doubt so. Over the course of an entire season, maybe it costs you a point, but it's not going to be the difference. The difference is going to be whether Kadri can repeat last year's performance, whether you can get 30 goals out of Matt Coronado, whether Zane Parekh can run the power play. Those are the things that are going to matter at the end of the day to help this team win and lose hockey games. So go with the players that can give you an opportunity to win. Go with players that are going to give you an opportunity to have a future with the organization. You can't tell me the Flames are itching to re-sign Jake Bean after this season to keep him on the roster.
Yeah, we talked about it this summer a lot. Like I think both of you and I were on the same page that we both thought Bean and Miramanov should have been waived, and like that should have been a decision made in the summer.
Yep.
But they're both on the roster, so I mean, good on them. Hopefully they can prove us wrong and they can play some good hockey this year, but I am not holding my breath on that one. Before we move on to go ahead.
No, I just laughing at your comment there.
But before we move on to predictions here, are there any other guys that really intrigue you on this roster? Like I know one for me is Connor Zary, because like I wrote an article at Flames Nation. I made 10 predictions for the upcoming season, and the last one I made was that Connor Zary was not going to take the step forward that we're expecting. Like he thinks that he can be a 50-point player. For some reason, I just got this feeling that I just don't know if this is the year he's going to break out. Like when I was watching him in the preseason, I thought that he looked really slow. Like I thought the skating just was not good enough. Like not really even close to being good enough. That really concerned me. Also, it's just like he doesn't really have a role on this team. He doesn't really have consistent line mates. Like it's not like you're gonna put Connor Zary in the lineup and like set and forget it kind of thing. It's like, you know, is he gonna play with Backlund and Coleman, and in that role he's gonna have to be a lot more defensive, or you know, if you know Matt Vigrid maybe doesn't work out, maybe they move Zary up in a more offensive position, or does he spend time on the fourth line? Does he get put up to the first line? Will he play center? It's like it's so up in the air with this guy. So like between the skating, and another thing too is he's got to work on his shot. So like between his skating, his shot, and there's like the lack of a role on this team and the lack of consistent line mates, I'm almost wondering if maybe this is not the year he's going to have that breakout season. I really hope I'm wrong, because I like the guy a lot. And I think he's a future leader on this team, but I just, for some reason, just heading into the season, I got this feeling that it might not be it for him. And like, where are you at with Zary?
That's a good question. I think where he's put in this lineup right now with Backlund and Coleman should almost just be a mainstay for him. After last season's injuries and in and out of the lineup and inconsistencies, maybe having consistent line mates and that type of a role will help him out. I don't know if him at center is an experiment the Flames should go down, given what we've seen from Morgan Frost right now. So I think it might be better for him to just have this role beside Michael Backlund, two guys we know will be consistent all year long, regardless of the opponent, regardless of the night, regardless of whatever the situation might be. Those are two good line mates for him to maybe learn from. And maybe that helps his game out a lot. It's a big year for him. I thought he was okay in some preseason games, but the inconsistencies for me is the question with Connor Zary. I hope he breaks out. This is a guy that I've been following since he became a Kamloops Blazer. Like, this guy is an incredible hockey player, and he has an opportunity in front of him. But it's quickly getting late early for him, or early late, however that sentence goes. And he needs to start showing up here. Another guy that I'm looking at, and there's a few on the forward ranks. Like, we could talk about Farabee or Sharon Govich or Klapka, but we need to speak a little bit, maybe a little time here on the goaltending real quick. A lot has been made about what Dustin Wolf could be. The Flames go as far as Dustin Wolf can take them, which is all true, but I'm really interested to see what Devin Cooley does as the backup for the Flames. He took a lot of justified flack after his last appearance in the preseason. It wasn't great. Wasn't good almost all preseason for this guy. They keep him up with the Flames for familiarity reasons, which I understand there. But that leash for Devin Cooley has got to be short. Prospetov waiting in the American Hockey League to take that job from him right away if he stumbles. So I think Devin Cooley is going to have a lot of pressure early on him, and we could see him really early in the season with the Flames having 3 games in pretty much 3.5 days to start their season. All of them are home openers for certain teams, so that's a lot of extra pregame ceremony and hype build up into those hockey games. I wonder if we see Devin Cooley sooner than later in the season here, and a lot of pressures on him. So he's one guy that I'm going to be watching for sure here because he's got a lot to prove after the preseason.
Yeah, does he ever? I mean, the tough thing with Cooley is that, obviously he was great to start the year last year, but then from January onward, basically from January onward, he was probably the worst goalie in the American Hockey League. And then in the preseason, he was probably the worst goalie in the National Hockey League during the preseason. Yeah. And I'm saying this as a Cooley fan. Like, if you listen to this podcast, both John and I are like obsessed with Devin Cooley, and like we were calling for him to be the backup last year. So to see him struggle like for this amount of time, like, it's hard to watch. Like the preseason, he never looked comfortable. Like every single appearance he made it look very difficult, and it looked like he had no confidence in the crease. Mm-hmm. I think there's probably a 95% chance that he's going to play in Vancouver on Thursday. And this is going to be the biggest start of his entire life. If it doesn't go well and he gets crushed for 4, 5, 6, 7 goals against, then all of a sudden, like, you're probably looking at bringing up Prosvetov, because I don't think anyone's going to claim Cooley if they see performance like that. But the only way I don't see Cooley playing on Thursday is if the Flames get blown out in Edmonton and say they take Dustin Wolf out of the game in the second period, and they're like, okay, we got to play Wolf on Thursday, so we don't have another blowout type of game against the Vancouver Canucks. So yeah, this is massive for Cooley. His career is on the line. His NHL career is on the line, potentially as early as Thursday night. That might be over exaggerating it a bit, but man, that's an important start for that guy.
And we're not the only ones talking about Devin Cooley either. I heard Elliot Friedman on his podcast even ask Kyle Buskauskas, what are the chances Dustin Wolf goes all 3 of these first early games? Like, that's a lot to ask of Dustin Wolf, but that's how much questions there are around the Flames' backup goaltender, that even national media members are wondering what the Flames are going to be doing here with this guy. So massive start for Devin Cooley coming up on possibly Thursday. We'll see how that goes for him.
And I am absolutely in the camp that you can play Dustin Wolf as much as you want. Like, I would throw him out there like the Flames used to do with Mika Kiprusoff. If their goal is to make the playoffs, having Dustin Wolf, your best player, your most valuable player on the bench for 20 plus games a year, does not make sense for this team if they want to get to the playoffs. Like, I'd be down for Dustin Wolf playing. I'd say play him more than that. I'm like, if they want to play Dustin Wolf 70, 72 times a year, I am literally okay with that. I think NHL teams, they baby goalies right now. Like, they treat them with kid gloves. And like, if you just take a look in the past, like, Martin Brodeur would always play 70 plus games. Roberto Luongo would play 70 plus games. Kipper, Henrik Lundqvist, like, all these guys that would always play 70 plus games, and no one ever said a word about it. Dominic Hasek, same thing. Why can't you do that with today's goalie? I don't understand that. Like, especially when there's an Olympic break, like, play the hell out of Dustin Wolf. Then he's got 3 weeks to reset and relax, and then play the hell out of him after that again too. Like, play this guy like 70 games if your goal is to make the playoffs.
Don't hate it. Don't hate that at all, especially if you don't know what you're going to get in the backup role. Like, if you get garbage, if you're getting garbage from Devin Cooley and you switch your backup goalies, and Prospetov's has a 7 goals against average too, like, you might have no choice to play Dustin Wolf, because what's next after those 2 guys? It's Owen Say, and he's his first professional season. So interesting to see. Why don't we predict this Flames season, Robert? Let's see where each of us think where this Flames team is going to go. We both have a lot of questions about this roster. We both think maybe a little bit different how the team's going to go this year. We both hope at the end of the day the Flames are a positive story and not a negative story. But let's start with you. Where do you see this Flames team finishing this year, Robert?
So yeah, in general, like the way I put it to John was, are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to be in the mushy middle? Or are they going to be in the bottom 10? And I do think they're going to be in the mushy middle once again this year. And it's mainly because of Dustin Wolf. I think Dustin Wolf is so good, and I think he's going to actually be better than he was last year. And he will single-handedly keep this team in the playoff mix this season. So I have the Flames finishing outside the playoffs, but they're going to be kind of in it, almost like Utah was last year. I think Utah would be like kind of a good example of the kind of season I see the Flames having. So yeah, I'm going to go mushy middle.
How can it not be the mushy middle? How can it not? That's all we've ever seen for the longest time was mushy middle, just in, just out type of situation. Dustin Wolf's a good argument for why they would be closer to the playoffs than to the bottom 10. It's mushy middle for me. This roster just speaks of mediocrity, all due respect to those players. So I have them as well, right there in the mushy middle. If we're taking it one step further, your second question to me was, what kind of a record do I see this team being with? Well, if I'm going to put them in the mushy middle, I got them around that 84-point mark as 38, 36, and 8 type of record. That's going to put them right around that 20th spot if you did last year's standings, which again is just outside the playoffs in that mushy middle area, just where they have it. So I have them about 80, 84-ish points next year, Robert. Am I too harsh on this roster?
I almost had the exact same thing as you. I went 38, 34, and 10 for 86 points.
Jeez.
So yeah, we're definitely in lockstep there for sure. And I mean, there is a world where they make it, where all those like guys kind of in like the mushy middle of the forward group, if they can all score at 20 plus goal levels, then all of a sudden this is probably a playoff team. If they can't score like they did last year, then they're mushy middle, and Dustin Wolf will have to steal a lot of points for them again.
This Flames team for me is going to need those veterans, the Huberdeaus, the Kadris, the Backlunds, to kind of repeat the offensive success of the last couple of seasons they've had. Plus, they're going to need that resurgence from the Farabees, the Frost, the Sharon Govich to be a successful playoff team, in my opinion. If they get regression, then this team's going to fall off in a hurry, I think, and a lot of it's going to be shouldered on Dustin Wolf. We're going to keep going back to that over and over when we talk about the Flames. Dustin Wolf's he's going to probably be responsible for 10 points, 12 points of this roster just by himself. And if we can get that from him, then maybe this team is a little bit closer to the playoff spot. Maybe they're closer to 90 points, 92 points than what Robert and I have them at, but it's pretty scary. Given this roster in the last couple of years, Robert, how do you go about sorting out who's going to be the leading point getter for this roster?
I think it's pretty obvious. I think it's going to be Nazem Kadri again.
I didn't even hesitate when I had my answer either.
Yeah, like I really don't know how you could pick anybody else other than Kadri, especially knowing that Huberdeau's hurt going into the year. So yeah, to me it was like a slam dunk at Nazem Kadri.
Yeah, I didn't even second guess Nazem Kadri, and then after I wrote it down, I went back and I tried to look at him like, who could pop up? Even if Matt Cornwell pops up with 30 goals, is he going to get himself 40 assists to be above Nazem Kadri? Even if Sharon Govich gets 30 goals, does he pop off with his assists? Even if Huberdeau's healthy after 80, for 80 games of the year, can he eclipse what Nazem Kadri does? There's just nobody there for me, even if they pop off, that are going to outdo what Nazem Kadri is, because he's probably going to be 60 to 70 points, somewhere right in there, like he always is. And this is Mr. Consistency for the Flames this year.
The other guy I was just going to throw out there was like if Mackenzie Weegar could, get back to like around the 15 to 20 goal range and maintain all the assists that he got last year, like he could be a guy that could push like 55, 60 points potentially, especially if he's on the first power play unit for the majority of the season. Like that's not completely out of the question to me either.
Yeah, good point. Even with Kadri as your leading point getter, is he your leading goal scorer?
He is. It was between him or Matty Coronado, but I just feel like with the way Kadri plays, just like that first shoot first mentality, like over the last 2 years, he's 8th in the NHL in shots on goal. So like he takes a million shots, and because of that, just the rate that he shoots the puck, I do think he's going to lead the team in goals this year.
I'm going to go with Matty Coronado. I'm going to do it.
Nice.
I'm going to be that guy. I think being on a different line than Nazem Kadri will help him. If him and Frost can keep that chemistry going, maybe he pots 32, 33 goals, and Nazem Kadri only gets to 30 or 31. So I'm going to go with Matty Coronado just to be a little bit different than Robert here, because Kadri is the easy answer for all of this. So I'm just going to throw out there, be a little bit more outside the box thinking.
And you said 30, 31 goals for Coronado this year?
For Kadri, and then 32, 33 for Coronado. Okay. So
I like
right close together. Just maybe he gets one or two more here than Nazem Kadri here, which would be a welcome addition to the scoring column for sure for this Flames team who loves to score 2 or less goals. Let's go to some other predictions here, Robert. Let's talk about players or a player that getting a lot of hype, a lot of expectations here for this player, but he's just not going to meet those expectations for you. Who's coming up short for you this year, Robert?
I mentioned him earlier. I think it might be Connor Zary. There's a couple other guys that you could throw in the mix for this one, but there's a lot of hype around Zary heading into the year. I think a lot of people are expecting him to be a 50-plus point player. Mm-hmm. But for the reasons I outlined earlier in the episode, just the lack of a role, the skating and the shot, I just don't know if this is the year where we see him break out. That doesn't mean that he can't break out later in his career, but this season, I just don't see Zary getting to that level. And I know that's going to be a wildly unpopular opinion because Zary is awesome. Like, he's just like, I love the way he plays and he just seems like a great dude. But yeah, just for some reason, I just have this feeling that he's not going to be the 50-plus point player that lots of people expect.
You can send your hate tweets to @RingOfFireCGY for that one. I thought about a couple of guys on this one. I thought about Farabee. I thought about Sharon Govich. And I'm like, well, how much expectations are actually around these guys? So I went to the defensive side of the puck for this one. I think Joel Hanley is a guy that we might come up a little short here. He was built up as this top 4 guy for us. We saw a lot of good play from him last year. We expected a lot from him as the season went on, as he played with Mackenzie Weegar, and they look really, really good together. I think the expectations is that he's going to step into this lineup and be another top pairing guy or top 4 guy who's going to log a ton of minutes for us, who's going to help Mackenzie Weegar be that game. And I just wonder, can he repeat what he did last year? Because last year was absolutely a career year for this guy in every aspect of hockey. And he looked tremendous at times for this Flames team. I just don't know if he can repeat it. He never really has in his career had that level of play before. So for me, Joe Hanley, I think, might come up a little short for us here. And I hope I'm wrong on that one as well, because he was really good for Mackenzie Weegar.
It would be devastating for the defense if he couldn't replicate what he did last season. It would really, really be tough. But, like, maybe he's going to be like a Derek Ryan type of guy who's a late bloomer and has lots of success in his 30s in the National Hockey League, or maybe last 40 games of last season that was just a bit of a flash in the pan. I mean, I really have no idea what to expect from him. I think you can expect him to be solid and make some smart plays, but can he keep up with opposing teams' first and second lines? That's asking a lot of a 34-year-old that's never played a full season in the NHL.
Especially at the minutes he had last year. He played a lot of minutes last year. He's never played that much before in an NHL season. So not saying he can't do it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he falls a little bit short on that, which is unfortunate because I like the guy too. Mm-hmm. Let's go to the positive side of things here, Robert. Let's pick a guy who we think is going to take his expectations, take him out back to the woodshed and just beat them over the head with them. What guy on this roster sticking out for you that's just ready for that breakout season?
Well, let's hear yours first. I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
I'm going with Morgan Frost. I think preseason showed me a little bit more for Morgan Frost of what he can bring to this lineup. I think he's done a lot in the roles given to him in those preseason games. He played a lot of games for the Flames this preseason, and he's been in the system now for a while. He knows the expectations of what Ryan Huska has for him. He knows this role on this roster and the potential he can have. He's going to look like he's playing alongside Matt Coronado, a guy who's really good offensively, so their skill is going to be around this guy. So I think he's poised for a good breakout. I don't think he's going to be like this point per game player, but I think we're going to see a much different Morgan Frost for a long time this year, and he's going to show guys why the Flames targeted him this year. If he came into this year and he gave himself a 20-goal season with a nice 30 to 40 assists, really be a really good season for this guy, and I think he's poised to break out for the Flames.
No, it would be massive. He is one of the big X factors for this season. If you're wanting the team to make the playoffs, like he has to be a 50-point guy.
Be that 2C and push Michael Backlund to 3C. Let's see it.
100%. For me, I'm going in a bit of a different direction. Probably one that not a lot of people go in, but I'm going to go with Dustin Wolf. And I know the expectations are pretty high on him. Like, I think a lot of people are probably expecting him to be probably just as good as last year. I actually think he's going to take another step forward. I think he's going to exceed expectations that he set for himself last year. I really believe that this guy is going to be not even like a top 10 goalie in the league. I think he's going to be like a top 5 goalie in the National Hockey League. And I think he's going to get some pretty significant Vezina votes. Like I think I could see him finishing in the top 5 in the Vezina. And if he somehow wills this team to the playoffs, almost like he did last season, this guy should be up for consideration for the Hart Trophy. Like he almost should have been up for consideration last season alone. And if he can take this team and get them to the promised land, the playoffs, which is what they want to do, this guy could get like Hart Trophy consideration. I'm really, really pumped to watch him this year. And like normally with goalies, like I don't find goalies all that exciting, but just the way Wolf plays and the way he moves around the crease and what a freak of nature he is athletically, like I'm pumped to watch this guy play this year. So I think he's actually going to be better than expectations.
I love it. Taking on the biggest expectations on the team head on with your prediction. I love it.
He's got that personality too, right? Like he's got that confidence and swagger to do that.
Yeah. And he's done it every year. Like every year in the American Hockey League, he got a little bit better. Every year in the Western Hockey League, he got a little bit better. Every year so far in the National Hockey League, he's gotten a little bit better. I know it's a small sample size from year to year, but there's nothing suggesting this guy won't take another step. Nothing at all. Like everyone's going to talk about the sophomore slump and regression, and I can be sold that conversation. But at the same time, the more likely conversation is what's next for Dustin Wolf? What's the next step for him? And that is becoming a top 5, top 8 goaltender, getting Vezina votes, maybe even being considered for the long term of the U.S. Olympic team. Maybe he does beat out a Swayman or an Ottinger to be the third guy on that roster. Like the road ahead for Dustin Wolf is his for the taking, and all he's done so far is exceed every expectation and every hurdle put in front of him. So it would not be out of the question to see him take another step. Absolutely love that pick by you, Robert. That's a tremendous one there.
The other one I was thinking about was maybe Rasmus Anderson. I kind of got this like sneaking suspicion that he's going to have a really good year because it's a contract year, it's an Olympic year. Like this guy's got a lot to play for. And last year was a train wreck for him. So I have a feeling that he could be pretty good this year as well.
Yeah, my other one was also on the defense. I also had Mackenzie Weegar I was thinking about as well. This guy, he scored the 20 goals 2 years ago. He wants to get back there. He wants to show Team Canada the Olympic conversation, very much similar to Rasmus Anderson here. So he was my other pick too. So the Flames defense has some interesting questions on the back end there that could go either way here. So
yeah.
That's it for Flame predictions this year. We're not going to go too wild with this one unless there's a bold prediction you want to throw out there like I did last year with Devin Cooley being the starter for the Flames and make yourself look like a fool. But let's go to...
That's one of the worst predictions I think that's ever happened, and that's coming from a guy that had Andrei Kuzmenko as a point per game player last year. Like we swung and missed big time on a couple of those.
We wanted to do bold predictions that were out there. We definitely did bold predictions that were out there. And we looked awful for it. Let's go to the league here a little bit. Everyone's doing their divisions and breaking down how every roster is going to be and who's going to finish ahead of whom and which division. We're not going to quite do that on this show. We're going to kind of pick some division winners and why we think that team is better than the rest of them in the division. So let's start in the Pacific Division, Robert. Let's start with who we're going to have finishing at the top of that division and why. And I'll start on this one here. I went with Vegas in this one. I think the addition of Marner is obviously self-explanatory. Eichel in a contract, you're looking for an extension, self-explanatory. The loss of Pietrangelo is huge, but at the same time, they've got a nice set of defensemen back there led by Shea Theodore. Aiden Hills, Mr. Consistency for these guys back there. They've got a top 5 coach, in my opinion, and Bruce Cassidy leading the way. This team seems poised to get back to the playoffs and show that last year was a bit of an anomaly for them because they were ousted quite easily by the Oilers in the playoffs. And I think this is a team that's built to just win hockey games. No matter how you want to play it, they're going to throw it down that way and really just see how the Vegas Golden Knights go. So I have them winning the Pacific Division. What about yourself?
I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be Vegas. I mean, it came down to Edmonton or Vegas, and I just think this Golden Knights team is just stacked. Like they're so good. Their
deep. Center depth is retarded. Like it's so good.
Jack Eichel, William Karlsson, Thomas Hertl, Colton Sissons are their 4 centers.
They also have Howden that can play center in a pinch as well. So that's 5 really good centermen.
Yeah, so I'm right there with you, and I think a guy like Zach Whitecloud is super underrated on their blue line. Doesn't get talked about much. Caden Korzak, I think, is super underrated. Like I know they don't have Petro, but those 2 younger guys I think are going to take big steps forward this year. And The one thing I don't really like is their goaltending. I think Aiden Hill is just okay, and it sounds like they're going to sign Carter Hart. So, and he hasn't played in a long time, so I'm not too convinced on their goaltending, but just the lineup like that they have, it's all veterans. Like they're all like in like their prime of their career. They're like in win now territory. Like they don't have like a single like 23-year-old player or younger that's inexperienced. Like this team is built to win a Stanley Cup this season. So yeah, I'm big on Vegas this year.
The health of Mark Stone long term will always be a factor for the Vegas Golden Knights as well, but I think they just have the depth to overcome it. And I really think that people aren't paying enough attention to Shea Theodore and what he brings. Everyone's going to go to talk about Makar, Hughes, Heiskanen, Hedman. They always leave out Shea Theodore, so watch him a little closer if you're not familiar with his game, because that guy's a top 10 defenseman if you actually watch how he plays the game, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go to the Central Division, Robert. Where are you leading here with the Central Division? I think there's about 3, maybe 4 teams that could win this division here.
Yeah, this one was tough because you're right. Like I think there's 4 like pretty elite teams there at the top. I'll just go with Dallas. I love the way they're built. I love the goaltending. Once again, lots of good veteran players on that team. Mikko Rantanen's going to be there for a full year. Could he put up 40, 50 goals? I'm a massive Rupe Hintz fan. I think that guy's one of the most underrated players in the NHL. And I do think the Stars they're going to make another move on their back end. They definitely need some help on the right side. And, look no further than number 4 here in Calgary. But I think they're going to add to that already like good blue line. It's going to become a great blue line. And once again, I think they're built to win right now. Like these guys have Stanley Cup pedigree. I like all the veterans. I like a little bit of young talent there. And they also have the elite high-end talent that you need to win with Rantanen and Heiskanen and Ottinger. Like they are such a strongly built team. I'm a huge fan of theirs, so I'll go with the Stars.
Love that pick. I'm going to go back to the well. I'm going to go back to the fool's gold, I guess, maybe at this point for me. But I'm going with the Avalanche again. What McKinnon brings, how motivated Makar can be. I think Bednar is a good head coach. I think they have fine goaltending. I think Mackenzie Blackwood gets overlooked in a lot of goaltending conversations. They got a really good defensive group. They're all veterans back there. They've got the depth up the middle now with Nelson being re-signed. They got Drury up the center now, who's a really good centerman, a little bit less known around the league. I think this roster's built to compete, and they have a healthy Gabe. They have a healthy Nikushkin. And guys, I think are motivated to show that last year in that kind of collapse versus Dallas was not the Colorado Avalanche team that we have come to know and like. So I have the Avalanche win a close Central Division. Trust me, I don't think Dallas and Winnipeg are going to be too far behind finishing the Avalanche and finishing at the top of that division there. That's going to be a very tight race all year long. And
even Minnesota.
Yeah, and even Minnesota. It's going to be very interesting to see how that shakes out. There was a guy on the Anthony Anders podcast who picked Minnesota to finish 6th in that division.
Ooh, I don't know if I agree with that.
I love CP, but he's crazy. Let's go to the Atlantic Division. This one for me was the toughest one to pick because I wasn't sure what we're going to get out of Toronto. I'm not sure what we're going to get out of Tampa Bay. You got the health questions with the Florida Panthers. You got the resurgence of other teams coming up, Montreal and Ottawa and those things. But I went with Florida in this one because until they're knocked off the pedestal and I'm proven differently, I'm going to go with the Panthers. I think they have what it takes to win. I know the regular season is not what they're really all about, but I have too many questions about what Toronto actually is. And I'm not sure if Tampa Bay is the Tampa Bay of old. I know they're getting a lot of hype in other podcasts and on other radio shows, but I don't know what they have left in the tank. And the questions on Vasilevsky kind of scare me off from picking the Lightning. So I have the Florida Panthers kind of winning this division by default, just for the fact that they exist and they're the best hockey team for the last 2 years in the league here.
I like that, but I am going to go completely off the board. And I'm going with the Ottawa Senators.
Do it, yes!
Ottawa Senators. I love what they're building. I love so many players on this team, led by Brady Tkachuk. Like I think Tim Stützle is one of the most underrated players in the league. They finally got a second line center in Dylan Cousins, who I think could put up 60-ish points. Mm-hmm. Even I just think there's a bunch of super underrated guys like Ridley Gregg that no one really ever talks about him. Shane Pinto, Fabian Zetterlund, there's a lot of really, really good, talented forwards on this team. And then on the back end, I think, you're going to have a future Norris winner in Jake Sanderson. I love Jake Sanderson.
I agree.
And then you got Thomas Chabot just below him, and then some really solid defensive players like Artem Zub and Nick Jensen. And then Allmark and net. I really like how deep this team is. I like how talented they are. They have some cap space. They're probably going to make a trade at some point this season to add to this group. I just think they've been building for like 6 or 7 years to get to this point where they can truly contend for a division. And I just no Marner in Toronto kind of makes me question them as a division winner. Like you said, the injuries in Florida, and you can tell they just probably don't care about the regular season, and
it's true.
Don't really know what you're going to get from Tampa, and so I'm going to Ottawa. I really like their team, and I'm cheering for them. Like those fans have been through a lot the last like 6 or 7 years here, and I'm also a big Brady Tkachuk fan, so I hope to see him win.
Love it. I love that pick. That's a little bit off the board for me, but I like it. The Metropolitan Division is an interesting one as well to have a conversation about. Washington had a really good year as Ovechkin did his chase of the goal-scoring record. The Rangers seemed to find landmines on purpose last year. The Flyers are rebuilding. The Penguins are rebuilding. The Islanders are what the Islanders are. The Blue Jackets had a really nice rally season last year. Devils got a lot of high praise last year. And the Hurricanes, there's a lot of different stories and a lot of different ways to go for the Metro Division. Where did you end up landing here for your division winner out in that Metro Division?
I don't even think this is going to be close. I think this team is going to win the division by 10 plus points. And I got Carolina winning the division. I think this is just such a well-built team. They're fast. They're in your face. They're incredible defensively. They have some high-end talent that can score goals. And once again, just a lot of underrated pieces, and then you look at who they add. They bring in Nikolai Ehlers, who could easily, if he stays healthy, could easily be a 60, 70-point guy there and brings a lot of speed to that group. You bring in Keandre Miller on the back end, and then you also bring in Alexander Nikishin, who nobody is talking about. But he was one of the best players in the KHL. Not only can he put up points, but he's also pretty big and I guess has a little bit of a mean streak to him. So and you're coached by Rod Brendamore, and I think Rod Brendamore is probably the best coach in the NHL. I love the guy. So yeah, I'm all in on Carolina this year. I think they're going to run away with that division. That team is going to be so hard to play against this year. They're so deep, they're so fast, they're well coached. I'm a massive Carolina fan heading in this year.
Rod Brindamore is the reason I picked Carolina to win this division. There's a lot of love going to the New Jersey Devils, and I get it. But I'm there with you. Rod Brindamore has a standard of how you play, regardless if it's game 2 of the year or game 75 of the year. It's all the same for him. It's high compete, high energy, high level, do your job, get it done. And I think that hockey all year long, with virtually the same group, the odd guys coming in and out, like Ehlers coming in helps that group. But it's been the same nucleus for a while now in Carolina. They get good enough goaltending. They have a great back end that can do a lot of good things for Rob Brindamore and move that puck ahead. The standard in Carolina is one standard, and that's highest level every single night. And I think that's going to propel them to division win there. It's a pretty easy pick for me. Probably the easiest of the 4 divisions for me to pick, if I'm being completely honest. Let's wrap it up here, Robert. We have to go straight to the Stanley Cup here, put our monies where our mouth is. If we had the betting app open right now, who are you picking in the Stanley Cup final, and who is your cup winner?
So I'll go Vegas in the West, and they'll face the Carolina Hurricanes in the East. And I got the Carolina Hurricanes coming out on top. They've been pushing for so long now. They're in. It seems like they're in the Eastern Conference Final the last 5 seasons. They're pushing. I think these additions of Nick Ehlers, Keandre Miller, Nikishin, I think those guys are going to put them over the top. And you have a banged up Florida team that's gone to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, and Alexander Barkov is not probably going to be able to play in the playoffs. I think this is their year to do it. So I'm picking the Hurricanes as the Stanley Cup champion.
Well, I got the Sharks and the Flyer. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I think those betting apps are going to love you. They're just going to steal your money.
Yeah, here's my free $20. I got Colorado out of the West. I think this is the year that they kind of flex their muscles again and kind of say, hey, we're still kind of good. And I also have Carolina coming out of the East, just for all the things I just mentioned about Brindamore. And the you mentioned there nicely as well. Like Florida's right for the pickings right now. I know they're still a really good hockey team. There's a lot of questions around Tampa. A lot of the normal teams out east, I think, have a lot of questions. And the one team that doesn't have the questions is Carolina right now. But I have the Avalanche beating Carolina in the Stanley Cup Finals. I think Nathan McKinnon's motivated this year to do a little bit more, and I never bet against my guy, Cale Makar. So I have the Avalanche over the Hurricanes.
You know, the crazy thing with the Hurricanes, too, is that they have $10 million in cap space.
Right?
So you know that Eric Tulsky is going to take a big swing, whether it's on a pending UFA or someone that could stay there long term. Like this roster is not finished from a construction standpoint. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Like they're going to add to this team.
If I were to live in Flames fantasy land for a minute and the Flames fall off and like some are predicting,
Kadri?
Wouldn't a guy like Nazem Kadri fit beautifully into that roster?
Yep, he would. He definitely would.
It's not going to happen, but let us dream. Let us dream and let us live. That'll do it for this week's episode of the show. Flame predictions, NHL predictions. Let us know what you think, where we went wrong, or how dumb we sounded, or how great we sounded. I know we sounded really good this episode as well. Looking forward to the season, Robert. Looking forward to what the Flames bring out there. Before we sign off here, what's coming up from you on flamesnation.ca, and where can the folks find you at?
Yeah, check out my latest article. I had some fun putting it together. I came up with 10 predictions for the 2025-26 season for the Calgary Flames, and it's all over the map from trades to who's going to lead the team in scoring. And I'll mention my biggest, kind of boldest prediction was that Dustin Wolf will lead the NHL in starts this season, and I think he literally could push like 70 with just the way the backup goalie situation is looking right now. So yeah, no, that was fun to put together. So check that out.
It is a good read. I read it earlier today before we did this podcast as well. You find Robert at Ring of Fire CGY on X there. He does a lot of great work for flamesnation.ca. Find me at Vintage Johnny 84. And of course, the show is Red Mile Rundown wherever you do your social media. We appreciate your love of the podcast. Continue to like, share, and tell your friends all about us. We will see you next week when there's actual games to talk about, Robert. Actual games.
Can't wait.
By the time this podcast comes out, we'll be like 24-ish hours away from the Flames season getting kicked off. Enjoy the hockey. We'll see you next week here on the